Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to Deal Development. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at a little bit more of an advanced topic. We're going to be looking at another coding interview question in JavaScript, the staircase problem. And I think this is definitely a very interesting problem and a great one to have in your bag of tricks. And I think it's definitely going to step up your algorithm game. And yes, I think that today is going to be a fantastic day for bad jokes. So I hope you guys are excited for this, and let's jump right into it. Fantastic. So the first thing that you guys are going to need to do is go over to the GitHub repository that I've linked in the description of this video and get the test file straight from my GitHub repository. And this is where you can get all the tests for this function. And it's called test.js, so just get it right from the GitHub repo and stick it right there in your root directory. So after you've done that, you're going to want to go over to your terminal and say npm init. Let's just enter through all of this stuff. Okay, we've created our package.json. So now let's say npm I jest. Let's install jest right into our directory. Great, so once jest is installed, go over to your package.json file and in your scripts, in your test script, take away all this random stuff over here, no test specified, and just replace that with jest, just like that. Cool. So the goal of this problem is to create a function called staircase, which accepts x as an input, which will be a positive number. And the function needs to create, or essentially console log, a staircase of hash characters with x amount of rows and also x amount of columns. So you can see over here we have some examples. Staircase with 2 as an input will return a hash and a space, then it will return 2 hashes. And if we call staircase with 3 as an input, you can see the first line here has a hash, then 2 spaces. The next line has 2 hashes and a space, and the final line will have 3 hashes. Just like that. So remember that the spaces do need to be added on the right hand side of every time that the line is created with the hashes. So keep that in mind when you are creating your solutions. So pause the video and give this one a shot, and I'll see you in just a second for the solutions. So how did it go, guys? Did you manage to do it? If you did, then I'm very impressed and you did an amazing job. But if not, that is totally okay. And before we start coding the solution together, I'd just like to show you exactly what's going on in a visual manner. So as you can see over here in this diagram, this is an example of the function with an input of x being equal to 4. So as you can see, it's generating 4 rows as well as 4 columns. Now, the way that we determine whether or not a hash symbol or just a blank space is displayed for each time we console log is as such. We need to iterate through the rows, and inside of that loop, we then need to iterate through the columns. And then we need to do some checking, which I will go through right now. So here is the general kind of algorithm that we can use to solve this problem in an iterative manner. So first we need to iterate from 0 to x, which is the input, so that would be through the rows. Then inside there, we'll create an empty string and call that stair row. Then we will iterate with another loop from 0 to x again, so the same input, but this time we will iterate through the columns. Then inside of that loop, we need to do an if statement. And we need to check if the current column that we are going over is equal to or less than the current row. So that is basically this line right here is how we determine this entire algorithm. We go through all the rows, we go through all the columns, and this if statement checks if the current iteration is equal to or less than the current row iteration. So if it is, then we need to add a hash symbol to the stair row variable. Otherwise, we need to add an empty space to the stair row variable. And then the way that we create the staircase is by using the console log statement in the correct loop. That's very important. So in the first loop. So that is basically how we solve this problem, guys. So let's go right ahead and start coding this. So before we start coding up our solutions, one other thing we'll need to do is at the bottom of our file, we just have to say module.exports is equal to staircase, like that. Then in our test file, we can require the staircase file and save it to a variable as such so that we can run our tests successfully. Alright, so now that we have just successfully set up, let's start getting to work on the iterative solution. So I'm going to say function staircase, and that is going to take in x as an input. So remember, the first thing we have to do is loop through the rows. So I'll use a normal old for loop here. I'm going to say for, then let row, I will call it row, and that will be equal to 0. Then as long as the row is less than x, then we will increment the row. So row plus plus. Let's open up that for loop. Then remember, we need to create the empty stair row variable as an empty string. So we'll just say let stair row equals an empty string, just like that. Now, if you'll remember from the algorithm, we need to make our second for loop, which is going to go through the columns. So we'll make another for loop here. For let col for column also equals 0, and as long as the column is less than x, remember we use x again for both of the loops, we increment col, so col plus plus. And let's open up that for loop. Now inside here, this is where we check. So if the col is less than or equal to the row, then we need to take our stair row variable and we need to add, so plus equals a hash symbol, just like that. Else, we need to take the stair row variable and simply add an empty space, just like that. And the final thing that we need to do is, of course, console.log the stair row variable. And remember, we need to do that within this first loop and not within the second one. Great. Cool, so let's go ahead and first test this with the instance of x being 4. So we just call staircase with 4 as an input. Then let's go ahead and run our file. So node staircase.js. And if we look at our terminal, we can see that the correct amount of staircases are being displayed. Fantastic. And let's also just run npm run test to run our tests. Just a second there. Just a bit of a second, trying to run the tests over here. Seems to be just a little bit confused as to how to run these tests. And you can see that all the tests have successfully passed. Fantastic. Cool, so that is our solution that uses iteration. I will just comment it out. And below that, we will start on our solution that uses recursion. So I'm going to say function staircase. Now, the parameters for the recursive solution are as follows. We will take x again as the main input. Then we need to set row equal to 0 initially. And we also need to set our stair row string up here as an empty string, just as before. Now, the first thing we're going to have to do is handle our base case, right? So all we do is if the row is equal to x, which is the input, of course. So if that is the case, then we need to immediately return, so stop the function. So that is our base case that has been dealt with. Next thing we need to do is another if statement, as is normally the case with recursive solutions. We'll say if x is equal to the stair row dot length, then we will have to console log the stair row. Like that. And we will also need to return the function again. So return staircase, and as arguments this time we're going to use x, of course, and row plus 1, right? Because we need to add 1 this time inside of this current iteration. Then we need to use another if statement, and this is going to be if the stair row string, if the length of that current stair row, so stair row dot length, is less than or equal to the row, just as before, then what do we want to do? We want to add the pound symbol to the stair row. So let's say stair row plus equals a pound symbol, and else then we want to simply add a space. So stair row plus equals a space, just like that. Now finally, after all the if statements, we need to finally call the entire function again, after these cases have been handled, of course. So then we just say staircase, and as arguments x, the row and the stair row variable. Stair row variable, just like that. Great, so let's just go ahead and test this out again with the normal staircase call. So staircase with 4 as an input, and let's run that. So node staircase.js, and it seems as though our staircase is backwards for some reason. This should be stair.length is less than and not greater than node staircase.js, and you can see that the 4 staircase rows have been printed out successfully. Great, and let's do our npm run test. Let's hope it speeds up this time. And you can see that we are passing everything. Cool guys, so that is it for today. We've gone over 2 different solutions to the staircase problem, and I hope it wasn't too challenging. I know this one can be a little bit tricky to get your head around. But thank you so much, guys, for watching, and let me leave you with this. What did the Rastafarian guitarist say to his band members when they were deciding what role he should play in the band? Yeah, man, algorithm. Yeah, algorithm jokes. Sorry about that, guys. Anyways, I truly hope that you found this video enlightening and that you have sharpened your coding skills. And I will see you all next week. And thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye bye.